Okay, hello. This is not a video I was planning on making, since I'm actually feeling quite sick today, but I'm a little bit triggered by all this debate going on about the tier lists and the topic of balance for treaty specifically, and maybe a bit more general as well. So I figured I'd just share my thoughts and explain why there is so much confusion and different opinions out there. Um, so Frank with Loves actually asked me to, yeah, share my thoughts on how balance works um, in this specific context. So I'll just answer that first. So how do I define balancing in this specific context? Balancing for me means that we have 22 civilizations right now that are all pretty unique, okay? Every civilization has their own bonuses. And the goal behind balance is to bring civilizations in line, so despite them being so different, the outcome of a match depends on the player and not the civilization. Okay, so you should be able to use your skills, your knowledge, and the thing that define you to win a game, and not simply rely on a civilization's features that perhaps are broken. Now, this is a little more complex because we have a lot of civilizations and with different positions on the map to play on, such as natives, no natives. And it is obvious that 22 civilizations are insanely hard to put into lines, which is why we deal with them in tiers. We look at civs, we look at their design, and decide how good is this civ and how much skill is required. Let's make an example. If we take French. French is a civilization with pretty good eco, strong military, and, well, still a lot of skill required due to micro being involved. We can all agree that if you master the civ to the furthest extent, that is going to give you a huge advantage. So balance means that someone else playing another civ that is also capable of showing off your skills despite having strong features should be able to either beat French if the other player is better or lose to your French if you play it better. What it would be off balance is if someone else with much less knowledge and much less skills and just the worst approach to the game wins regardless of what you do and how well you do it, just because he's given a feature that you cannot beat, a feature that overcomes your personal skill. Such thing could be referred to as what Mexico or Ethiopia do, where, well, you pretty much have one-trick strats of, for Ethiopia's case, you spam units and you will always win the trades, no matter what. You do not require huge amounts of skills. Does not mean you need none at all. You have to be a good player regardless, of course, but the Civ is significantly stronger than other Civs. So when I look at balance, I regard it as my job to keep Civs on one line. And by that I do not mean to keep 22 Civs on one line. I put them in clusters, which is our tiers, which means I'm trying to make sure that there is always a bunch of civs in the same cluster and not one civ outstandingly good or outstandingly bad. And that is what we try, okay? We try to put these civs into clusters, which is why we have the tier lists. Second, should every civilization have an average or similar train rate? Well, that's basically answered. It does not really matter. A civ can have much more eco than a different civ. Maybe the other civ has better military or larger army or something. Okay? There's a lot of ways to make a civ strong or weak. And what I did recently is I made a tier list first, where it just puts civs into tiers, which is this, which is my personal opinion, but also what I or how I view the game right now. And this on its own is something that a bunch of people did, and there's variations, and so people end up asking, hey, Julian, Airchair, which one is correct? You put this civ higher than the other guy. And then I read, that's just personal opinion. And the actual answer is no. No, actually, it's not just personal opinion. In a way, yes, but not exactly. Because what I do is not just present you my basic opinion because of how I like or do not like a sieve. And the thing that other people do wrong when they make sieve tier lists, and that really goes for everyone, is they do not look at the relevant aspects. For example, I can show you the air tier list. Where's this stuff? Here. This is what Airchat writes every few months. And what Airchat does is he rates sieves based on his personal experiences. And the problem here is that Airchat likes specific sieves, plays specific sieves more than others, and dislikes other sieves. And what you can find at the top usually is sieves that Airchat does not like playing against or is likely to have a high loss rate against. I know that sounds very evil, but that is what it is. The reason why Airchat always puts Sweden so high on his tier list is not because Airchat is a main Sweden player and feels like he's crushing the world when he plays it. No. The reason is because he feels like he loses every game to Sweden. He feels like his opponents have a too easy time beating him with the Civ. On the other hand, Civs that he plays himself are likely to go a little bit lower on the list. Which is why you find Civs like, let me check what he actually is, S plus S tier 1 to blah, blah. Da, 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 da. Yeah, which is why you find civs like Maya or Inca a bit lower than they should be. This is a 1v1 list. I'm a bit too lazy to read, but typically that's what I've observed over the past months. It's not true for every single pick that he has. Like, he puts some civs in the correct tier, of course, but there is always some, yeah, civs with a personal touch. On the other hand, we have this very, very static approach from Dramos, where he looks at a lot of numbers and statistics. I actually don't know where it currently is, so I'll just not show it. He made a tier list that's a bit different from what I have, I think. Oh, actually, maybe it's in here. Let me see if I find it quickly. Yeah, this is what Dramos did, based on an Excel sheet. And the problem here is this time that Dramos does not just base his experiences on his does not base his tier list on his personal experience, but he bases it on numbers that are not the correct numbers to look at when you judge a civ. What he did is he looked at the boom of a civ, how easy a civ is to play, at unit strength, and etc. etc. And as you can see, there is a bunch of things that are similar to what my tier list includes, but there's things that are far off. And that is because when I look at balance, I know that the product of a civ as a total is what is relevant. When you're in a lobby and you decide what civ to use because of a tier list and you want to pick a strong civ, think about what information is relevant for you. When you say, oh, I just picked a strong civ, do you care about what civ Airchair loses to the most? No. Do you care about which civ has the highest score? Most likely not. That's interesting to know, but it's not really relevant. What you care about is how likely am I to have an advantage over my opponents and his civ. Let's say you pick Mexico. Mexico, known for being a broken S tier plus civ that really just has no good match in most cases. You're 100% sure that you will have an advantage against your opponent no matter what civ he plays. Well, if you pick a low civ like Russia, and I'm going to go over my list in a moment, you're very, very likely to have a disadvantage against whatever your opponent plays. That is how you should view the civs. And where that advantage or disadvantage comes from is a bit too deep to go into right now, but it really just comes from these things such as unit strength, economy, synergy, strat choice, so many features. But when you make a tier list as a total, you're not supposed to rate these features as a single. It is important to look at the civ as a total. Because if you look at the single aspects that combined create the product, you will be misled and you will be led to this. And this is wrong. And the reason why it's wrong is because of what I just said, and I can basically prove it because I did the opposite. I created a ranking. Further below, you find all the precise reasoning behind it, where I basically rated every single matchup for every civilization. And trust me, that was way too much work. I regret doing it, but it's here now. And now I'll explain to you why this is so much more accurate than what anyone else did. So let's say I pick a middle civ like French. So what I went into with French is, where is it? Yeah. I start running down the matchups. How does French versus Aztec go? In a no-net scenario and in a native scenario, because those things matter. And as you can see, I have not been keeping up with all the explanations because there's way too many for now. But if we take Aztec as an example, I say using Bourbon Musk is probably a good fight for French because you can Skir Musk, which is usually a good combo against Aztec in general. However, it's still an even matchup because it takes a lot of skill to approach Aztec properly, and Aztec just has a good late game right now. So I basically give the key reasons for why this matchup is even, and in the moment where it's even, that is no point. You gain 1 point if a matchup is in your favor. You gain 2 points if the matchup is super easy for you. You lose 1 point if the matchup is bad for you. You lose 2 points if the matchup is just a steamroll against you. And that is how I create scores. 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and so on and so on, okay? And I count these all together, and in the end I rate their scores. So when you see this final score that I created, this basically describes, even though the exact number does not really matter, it describes in this specific order how likely when you pick one of these civs you are to have an advantage or a disadvantage against your opponent. If you pick Mexico, the chance is 100%. It's the best civ. Okay? If you pick Ethiopia, it's already not 100%. And so you go down and down and down until Italy, you're just basically at nearly 0% chance to have a good matchup for yourself. Okay? And that is how it works. And that's the only way how it works. You cannot put up any other explanation there, as arrogant as it may sound. This is the only smart way to rank civs. Because the only information you want in the lobby when you want to know civ strength is how likely am I to have an advantage. You're not interested in looking at Mexico and knowing, I'm gonna pick Mexico because they have this and this amount of attack skirm, this and this amount of attack cav, and this amount of economy at 40. That's what I need. You're also not interested in how likely Airchair is to lose against Mexico. You're interested in if we suppose two equally strong players on top level, and that's important. You always want to imagine two players on top level versing each other with these civs. Who has an advantage based on the civ and not the skill of the player himself? And that is going to be in this order. So if you pick a civ in the middle, there's always like a 50% chance you end up having a good matchup, and a 50% chance you do not. And the further you go low, the worse your civ is, because you're always less likely to have a good matchup, and the higher you go, the more likely you are to have a good matchup, okay? I hope this makes sense to you. I really hope this is the last time I have to talk about it, because it's honestly kind of tiring me. And I'm sorry to those that I've kind of discredited a bit for their lists, but this is just my honest opinion. Obviously, you can feel free to disagree. Uh, I think I've made pretty obvious why my reasoning is correct. But in the end, everyone has their own mind, and that's all I've wanted to say today. I'm going to bed now. Or maybe not yet. Well, we'll see. Just so fucked up. See you.